Solid, German under-23 champion this year, but she hasn't broken 23 seconds, and that's a tough old lane draw for somebody who is, in many respects, an outsider. Shericka Jackson, the Jamaican 200 champion this year, working on her speed this year. She's better known as a 400-meter runner. She has run 49.83 a couple of years ago. It's her birthday tomorrow, Jackson. Will she give herself an early present? This will be the athlete who might stop her, Jenna Prandini, the US champion, third in Rabat on Friday, to Miller Weibo and Asher Smith of Great Britain. Nina Asher Smith. Jennifer Gallet of France goes in 5. Third in the French Championships, Jennifer Gallet. Anna Basinska, semi-finalist of the World Championships 3 years back. Went out in the heats in this stadium last year, but 3 times the Polish champion. Good lane draw for her, lane 4. Beth Dobbin, well, she's in fabulous form as the 24-year-old rather, excuse me, UK champion at the beginning of this month in a new personal best. She missed the Commonwealth Games qualifying time for Scotland by 1/100th of a second, but boy oh boy has she come back with a vengeance. Her last 4 200s have been personal bests. Inside the Britain in 3 is Gulfen Huang, or Huang Gulfen. She goes in 2, only 20 years old, better at 400 metres. And then on the inside, Justine Palfreman, 6th in the 400 yesterday and 7th in the 4x400 metres relay for South Africa. This is her 3rd race of the weekend for Palfreman on the inside. Well, Shericka Jackson, there she is. Perhaps starts as marginal favourite on paper ahead of Jenna Prandini. She's in lane 7, the Jamaican. Suffered a slight blip in Lausanne last week. She was only 3rd in 22.8. But birthday tomorrow, what a good time to give herself a big result. That line up from the inside again. Palfreman of South Africa in 1, Huang of China in 2, Dobbin of Great Britain in 3, Basinska of Poland in 4, Gallet of France in 5, and Jenna Prandini, the US champion, in 6. Jackson in 7 in that yellow vest of Jamaica, Vesoli in 8 for Germany, but Prandini is blasted off and already has passed Jackson. Well, she's better known as a 400-meter runner, Shericka Jackson, for Jamaica in that yellow. Will she come back here at Prandini? The American being closed down. They're way ahead at the moment. It's going to be very tight. The Jamaican's coming. She's getting closer. She's going to get down. She takes it by a metre. Both of them 3 or 4 metres ahead of the 3rd placer. What a wonderful race. Prandini maybe expended too much energy in the first 50 or 60. She absolutely blasted out of the block. She ran it like a 100 metres around the bend. And I know, Tony, you'll have a view on what she might have done right or done wrong in that one. But Shericka Jackson was hunting her down, wasn't she? She's the bronze medalist from Rio over 400 metres, and she ran it like a 400-metre runner. Really patient there through the second half and through the last 50 especially.
I think the instruction had been there to get out hard, try and break the stagger on the outside, put the others under pressure. But like you say, if you expend too much energy, you're not putting your hips in the right place, not coming home particularly well. Let me talk to somebody who knows more about 200 metres than me. Catherine, what do you say?
It went completely to plan.
Can you remember that long ago, Kat?
I can indeed. I can remember running nearly that fast, but not quite. Your short sprinter, Jenna Prandini, got out like a rocket, and the strength and the speed endurance of Jackson with that 400-metre speed endurance just clawed her back. It was a wonderful race. The world number 2 against the world number 4. These are 2 of the fastest women in the world over this distance, and it was a wonderful race that we hoped. Look at the technique, holding her form. Jackson's not tired. She usually runs 400 metres, but that's a good turn of speed. Look at what she clawed back over the last 60 metres. And I can tell you as a sprinter, you're like, she's coming, she's coming. They will know Shericka Jackson's coming with her 400-metre strength. That was a brilliant race.
But if you watch Prandini coming off the turn, she doesn't get up. She sort of runs into the bend instead of using the centre.
The women's 200 metres at the 2018 Athletics World Cup in London was a fascinating clash between 2 very different sprinting profiles. Jamaica's Shericka Jackson arrived as an established 400-meter specialist who was rapidly transforming herself into a serious 200-meter threat. The United States sent Jenna Prandini, a pure speed athlete with one of the most explosive starts in the field. On paper, Prandini had the tools to control the race early. Jackson had something different: exceptional speed endurance, accumulated through years of racing the full lap. That contrast became the defining feature of the race. Jackson entered the competition only a few days after one of the biggest breakthroughs of her career. In June, she had run 22.05 in Paris, a personal best that dramatically changed her status over 200 meters. Before 2018, her identity was overwhelmingly connected with the 400 meters. She had a 49.83 personal best from the 2016 Olympic Games in Rio, where she won Olympic bronze, and she had also taken bronze at the 2015 World Championships. Her 400-meter background gave her an enormous aerobic and anaerobic foundation compared with many traditional short sprinters. But the 2018 season showed that Jackson was not simply experimenting with the 200 meters. She was becoming genuinely dangerous at the distance. The field in London was built to test that development. Prandini went in lane 6, Jackson in lane 7, with Beth Dobbin of Great Britain in lane 3, Jessica Bianca Wasali of Germany in lane 8, Anna Kiełbasińska of Poland in 4, Justine Palfreman of South Africa in 1, Jennifer Gillet of France in 5, and Guifan Huang of China in 2. Jackson was the fastest athlete in the field based on her recent form, but Prandini represented a completely different kind of threat. The start immediately revealed the tactical battle. Prandini attacked aggressively from the blocks. That was exactly what she needed to do. A 200-meter runner with superior acceleration wants to establish velocity early and force the athletes around her to chase. Jackson, by contrast, did not need to win the first 50 meters. Her greatest advantage would come later, when the race stopped being about pure acceleration and became a test of maintaining speed under fatigue. That distinction is critical when analyzing Jackson. A 200-meter race can be divided into several technical phases: the initial acceleration, the transition into maximum velocity, the curve, the transition from the bend onto the straight, and the final 60 meters. Jackson's value as a former 400-meter specialist becomes particularly obvious in that final phase. She could afford to let a pure sprinter gain ground early because she trusted her ability to maintain mechanics when the others began losing theirs. Prandini's opening was therefore not a mistake by itself. In fact, it was part of the reason she was able to challenge for the victory. The problem was that the energy cost of such an aggressive first half had to be repaid somewhere. Once the race moved beyond the bend, Jackson's strength began to matter more and more. The Jamaican's running remained controlled. She did not appear to panic when Prandini established herself. Instead, Jackson maintained her rhythm and allowed the race to come back toward her. This is one of the most important lessons from the performance. Speed endurance is not simply the ability to run hard for longer. It is the ability to preserve mechanical efficiency while producing high force under fatigue. Jackson had already demonstrated that quality over 400 meters. Her 49.83 personal best proved that she could operate at an elite level while maintaining speed deep into a race. As the athletes approached the final stages, the race began to swing decisively. Prandini had created the initial advantage, but Jackson was closing. The Jamaican's longer sprint profile allowed her to continue producing powerful ground contact, while Prandini had to defend the speed she had generated earlier. This is where the 400-meter background became a weapon rather than a limitation. Jackson did not simply accelerate at the end. She maintained her form. Her posture remained stable, her stride stayed powerful, and her rhythm did not collapse. That is crucial because the final 50 meters of a 200 can expose even minor technical problems. When an athlete begins to reach for the ground, overstride, or lose hip position, horizontal velocity drops immediately. Jackson avoided that deterioration. Prandini, meanwhile, had to fight to maintain her advantage. The American's aggressive opening gave her an excellent position, but the final section demanded another level of speed endurance. Jackson continued to close until she moved ahead and secured the victory. The official result confirms just how competitive the race was. Jackson won in 22.35 seconds. Prandini finished second in 22.45, and Beth Dobbin took third in 22.95. The entire field was separated by only 1.41 seconds. The wind was a modest plus 0.2 meters per second, meaning the performance was not inflated by a major tailwind. That 22.35 is important in the context of Jackson's 2018 development. Only weeks earlier, she had run 22.05 in Paris, lowering her personal best by a huge amount compared with the 22.57 she had recorded in 2017. World Athletics described her 2018 season as a major breakthrough, noting that the 24-year-old had moved away from her specialist 400 meters and immediately become a factor in the 200. She also won Commonwealth silver in 22.18. So this World Cup victory was not an isolated performance. It was part of a clear progression. Jackson had discovered that her 400-meter strength could be converted into an advantage over 200 meters. Instead of trying to become a completely different type of sprinter, she could build the 200 around the qualities she already possessed. Her challenge was to develop enough acceleration and maximum velocity to put herself in position to use that speed endurance. That is exactly what makes her evolution so interesting. Traditional 200-meter specialists often have the opposite problem. They possess exceptional acceleration and maximum velocity, but may struggle to preserve that speed through the final 60 meters. Jackson had the reverse profile. She already knew how to suffer through the second half of a race. The missing piece was developing enough front-end speed. By 2018, that piece was beginning to arrive. Her 22.05 in Paris was the clearest evidence. She won that Diamond League race ahead of Prandini, running a personal best and finishing 0.25 seconds clear of the American. The London World Cup victory then demonstrated that Jackson could reproduce the concept under different race conditions and against a field with Prandini again providing the main speed challenge. There is also a fascinating psychological detail surrounding the race. Jackson's birthday was the following day, July 16th. She therefore entered the competition with an obvious opportunity to give herself an early birthday present. But the bigger motivation was professional rather than symbolic. She was proving that her 200-meter transition was real. At the time, Jackson was already a decorated championship athlete. She had Olympic and World Championship 400-meter medals, and she had developed a reputation for reliability in major competitions. Yet her future was beginning to look different. The 200 meters offered her the opportunity to exploit her speed without requiring the enormous physiological cost of a full 400. The race also demonstrated why the curve is so important for Jackson. A 200-meter runner cannot simply sprint the first 100 and hope to survive. The curve requires controlled aggression. Too much effort early can destroy the transition onto the straight. Too little leaves an athlete with too much ground to recover. Jackson's approach was effective because she did not allow Prandini's early advantage to change her mechanics. She stayed patient. Then, when the race entered the final section, she converted that patience into pressure. This is where the comparison with Prandini becomes particularly revealing. Prandini was capable of extraordinary acceleration and had the kind of speed necessary to win elite 200-meter races. Jackson was beginning to combine enough speed with superior resistance to deceleration. When the two profiles met, the race became a battle between early velocity and late race durability. Jackson won that battle. The 2018 season ultimately confirmed that this was the beginning of something much bigger. Her Paris 22.05 was the fastest performance of her career at the time, and she continued developing rapidly. In the years that followed, she would become one of the defining 200-meter sprinters of her generation. Her transformation eventually produced a 21.41 World Championship record-level performance in 2022, followed by the 2022 world title in Eugene. World Athletics historical records place her 21.41 among the fastest performances ever recorded over the distance. That later success makes the London race even more interesting when viewed retrospectively. The athlete who won 22.35 at the 2018 World Cup was not yet the complete 200-meter sprinter she would become. She still had room to improve her acceleration, top speed, and race distribution. But the fundamental weapon was already there: the 400-meter strength. It allowed Jackson to absorb an opponent's early attack, maintain her mechanics through the most painful part of the race, and produce enough force in the final stages to turn the contest around. And that is the central lesson of this performance. Jackson did not defeat Prandini simply because she was stronger. She defeated her because she understood what kind of race she needed to run. Prandini tried to establish control through explosive speed. Jackson trusted her ability to remain dangerous after the race had passed the point where pure acceleration could decide it. The final numbers tell the story. 22.35 for Jackson, 22.45 for Prandini. Only 1/10 separated them at the finish, but the tactical journey was completely different. For Jackson, this was another confirmation that the 200 meters could become more than a secondary event. It could become her future. And looking back now, the signs were unmistakable. The 400-meter bronze medalist was learning to sprint like a 200-meter specialist without losing the endurance that made her dangerous. London 2018 was one of the races that showed the world what that combination could eventually become. Shericka Jackson was not simply surviving the final 60 meters. She was turning them into her greatest weapon.